here with us today, Jen. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that you are more than welcome to drop questions in the Zoom environment, in the chat or the Q&A, or also in the Facebook live stream, and we will get those over to Jen. So with that, I think we'll get started. Jen, thank you so much for being here with us today. And
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. This will be so much fun. I'm excited to be here.
We're thrilled to have you because this is definitely a slightly different type of activity than we've had, though we've been entertaining people with Yale Alumni Live. This is a very exciting opportunity to have a professional magician, which when I told people we were doing this, everyone was very surprised to hear that we had a Yale magic community. So we're thrilled to have you, and I think we're going to get started with a little bit of a conversation here today. And so I'm hoping that you can just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into magic, and then we'll talk about what you've been doing since you started your magical journey, if you will. And I will try not to do too many embarrassing puns. So over to you, Jen.
Sure. So I am class of 2014, Pearson College, and I started magic when I was 10 years old. And it actually all started with that orange book behind me on the shelf. It's called The Royal Road to Card Magic, and it's a book that my uncle gave me for my 10th birthday, and I just loved it from there. I remember, reading, sitting for hours and hours, just reading these magic books, and then I just looked for any opportunity I could to perform and to just get out there and do this thing I loved. And so I performed magic all through school, through middle school, high school, college, and loved being involved with the Yale Magic Society. I founded the group when I was a freshman and served as the president, and I'm so excited about what they're doing to this day. I just had a Zoom call with them last week, and they are awesome, and just, it's been an amazing part of my Yale experience being part of the magic community. And then after I graduated in 2014, I moved out to Vegas to pursue magic full time. I figured if there's any time in my life to just take a risk and really go for it and do this thing I love, I thought this is the time to do it. So now we're almost 6 years later, and I do a show at Westgate here in Las Vegas. Because of the COVID situation, all the shows are on pause at the moment, but I'm excited to be back. And if any of you are ever visiting Las Vegas, I would love to have you at the show at Westgate.
So if there's anybody who happens to be a member of the Yale, the Magic Society at Yale, please let us know that you're here because we'd love to see you. So Jen, tell us a little bit about, you said you got started when you were 10 and it was from a book that your uncle had given you. So tell us just a little bit about how you practice and who you practice for and kind of how your routines and your shows evolve.
Sure. So practice for me happens all the time and in lots of different ways. So I'll usually, if I'm working on something new, sometimes I'll be working solo, or sometimes I'll work with a team of magic consultants and builders and creators, and it'll be a very collaborative process, which is something I love about being a magician and also being part of the Las Vegas community, where they say there are more magicians per square foot. And I think that's a really exciting thing, to have more magicians here than it feels like, almost anywhere, and just lots of creative people working on different interesting projects related to the field of magic in some way. So sometimes the practice happens in groups. Usually when I'm working on something new, I'll first work on it and make sure that I kind of have the mechanics of it. And I know sort of the patter, as magicians would say, like what I'm going to say along with the trick. And then I'll perform it for family and close friends. And then I'll kind of widen that. And so by the time it goes into the show, I've had that kind of flight time with that particular magic effect. And so I feel like, okay, it's ready now to actually make it to the show. But it's sort of a gradual process.
This must be so much fun. And have your family and friends always been supportive? Are they always like, Jen, show us the trick? Is it constant in your life?
They have. I've been super fortunate that, I've had wonderful family, friends, mentors in magic, and I'm super grateful for that to this day. My family's always said, I remember even growing up, my parents said, do something that you really love, because if you love it, you'll work hard at it, you'll be motivated to do really well at it because you care so much about it. And I think that's something that I really took to heart. And, for me, magic is really at the core of it. It's about connecting with people, and I think especially in these difficult times that we're all in, to be able to bring a smile to someone's face, bring a little bit of joy in a tough time, and just, connect as people. I think that, is something that's really meaningful to me.
So Jen, we do have a question from someone watching in Zoom, and it relates to, I believe, your appearance on Penn and Teller, and they want to know if you have fooled Penn and Teller. And maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about your appearance there as well.
Sure. So I've loved being on Penn and Teller Fool Us. I've been on the show 3 times. The first time was back in 2015, where I did a card magic effect. And then I went back on the show in 2017 and did something that was more of a collaboration. So rather than it being kind of me in an attempt to fool Penn and Teller, it was actually something that Penn and Teller's team approached me about. It was an act that Penn and Teller originally created. They performed it on SNL back in the 80s. And the premise was that they were hanging upside down with a rig and gravity boots, but the camera was upside down also. So the studio audience was in on this. And then at the very end, the sort of trick is revealed as the camera flips over, and you see that all the magic that was happening was actually, achieved by us being upside down. But, there's a lot of training involved in that. So that was a totally different experience than the card trick I had done 2 years earlier. But I loved getting to do both. And I worked with a fellow female magician on doing the upside down act. And we each sort of played the role of Penn and Teller. She was sort of the Penn character, and I was the Teller character. And we had the chance to sort of add new elements to the act that hadn't originally been a part of it. And we had the opportunity to work on it and kind of develop it with Penn and Teller's team and with Penn and Teller, who I've admired ever since I was a kid. And then I also had a chance to be on their April Fool Us Day episode, where it was basically a magical prank. So if you want to look it up on YouTube, it's a fun magical prank that we pulled on Chris Hardwick. So that was a blast. So while I didn't fool them, I had a wonderful experience with them on the show and with their team, and I can't say enough positive things about Penn and Teller and about the entire Fool Us experience and team.
Oh, that sounds like a blast. And we actually have another really great question from the audience in Zoom as well, coming from Jordan. And the question is, when did you first do a trick that you're still doing today? So something that you might have discovered a few years back that is kind of a constant in your show or in your routine. That's a super fun question. Thank you for that, Jordan.
Oh, that is a really fun question. First time. Actually, would you like to see one? I know we spoke about doing some magic later on, but this is one that I remember learning years and years ago, and it's just something fun. And what I like about it also is that you don't have to carry around, any big props. It's something you can just kind of have in your wallet. And I'd love to just show you. This is one I've been doing for years and that I've always really enjoyed. And the idea is that I have my 2 lucky dollar bills. I keep them folded up in my wallet at all times. And you can see we have, of course, the 2 singles. Everybody can see all the viewers, wherever you may be in the world, we've got the 2 single bills. Watch this. We'll fold the bills once. I'll show you why they're my lucky dollars. Fold them twice, and the magic happens. On that 3rd fold, they turn into a $100 bill.
I mean, I would love to be able to do that. So maybe we should talk after this. It would make things significantly easier.
Might cause some inflation issues, but but yeah, that's a fun example of one. I think I first learned that trick maybe I was 12 or 13, and I just really enjoyed getting to do it over the years.
Oh, that's great. 12 or 13, your family must have loved that. I love it. So
I think I did it with a $5 bill at that point.
That's fantastic. We just had a comment from Jeff, and he said that he was a frequent visitor to Yale Magic while you were there. And
hi, Jeff.
He saw your show at Westgate, and he thought it was amazing. So thank you so much for being here today, Jeff. So, and there was another question that folks had, and it was whether or not you'd be doing some tricks. So yes, there will be some more tricks as we go along. And so for those of you who may not have seen Jen's bio or didn't hear us at the intro, Jen actually graduated from Yale College as a theater major. And we do have a question that came up from Helen, and she said, how did you decide on theater studies? And was it because of your interest in magic? And was this kind of a path that you thought you were going to take? Is that how you ended up in that major?
Yes. So there wasn't a major in witchcraft and wizardry, so I figured theater studies was as close as I would get. But I loved being a theater major, and I think there's just so much overlap between theater and magic, and there's so much that I learned, even not directly related to magic, that I've been able to apply to my shows as a magician. And the experience of being a theater major is something that was wonderful. And I knew at the time that I was really interested in pursuing magic full time. And so I wanted to kind of get as much experience in the theater world as I could. So I became a theater major. And I think the college years for me were kind of about figuring out, how do I take this thing that I love so much and turn it into a practical reality as a full-time career. And I think, taking internships in Las Vegas, I reached out to different Vegas headliners and did 2 summers interning for a magician named Nathan Burton, who did a big illusion show on the Strip. He's still performing on the Strip. And being a theater major and interning in Las Vegas in college really kind of helped me figure out how to take this thing I love and really work out the practical aspects of that to make it happen.
So that kind of plays into one of the next questions that I had was, do you have role models as magicians, as a magician, and folks so it sounds like you paved your own way by reaching out to individuals. It doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to find. Perhaps we have this great tool now at Yale for alumni called Cross Campus, where people can connect to one another, searching through professions and different areas of interest. But it sounds like you had to pave your own way. How did you find these folks? Who were your original role models? Are you connected to a role model now? What does that look like for you?
So I think one of the things that's both really exciting and also challenging about being a magician is that a lot of it is sort of charting your own course. But I do find that to be really exciting and an interesting opportunity because, it's really something where I think you just have to be persistent and be proactive about it. It's not like people were going to just call me randomly and the opportunities are going to land in my lap, like, oh, would you like to do your show here? Or would you like this? So I remember kind of having the mindset of, okay, let me just really go after this and reach out. And if let's say a venue has never done it before, or they don't have the budget for it or the space. When I was first reaching out about doing a show in Vegas, I wouldn't take that personally. They don't know me personally. I think it's just sort of about being persistent and going after those opportunities, which is something that many of my role models in magic have done, and that's something I really admire about them. So you asked about role models, so many from David Copperfield. I remember watching his TV specials, and Penn and Teller, of course. I love Penn and Teller, and I've admired them ever since I was a kid. David Blaine, I remember watching his specials as well. There are magicians named Tom and Janet Berner who have an organization called Magicians Without Borders. And so they travel around the world performing magic for people who are really in some very difficult situations, and they're able to spread hope and happiness and really just bring joy through magic. And so I've been inspired by them ever since we first met when I was 12 years old, and had the opportunity to connect the Yale Magic Society and Magicians Without Borders. And we actually did a joint trip where we went to perform in India a few years ago. And so that's been an ongoing relationship now between the Yale Magic Society and Magicians Without Borders. So they've definitely been role models through the years, but just so many great role models.
That's great that you're able to connect the Yale Magic Society. I really hope that we'll be able to connect with them when the students come back to campus to have like maybe a little follow-up show we can do together. Might not be Yale Alumni Live, but Yale Students Live. We can tie it all together. So
Awesome.
Kind of along the same vein, we also have another question in Zoom that relates to whether or not you create all of your own tricks, or if they are things that have evolved from things you've seen before that other magicians have done. So can you tell us a little bit about how you come to get those tricks?
Sure. So I'd say both. Sometimes you'll come up with something that really is just a brand new concept, but oftentimes there will be these sort of foundational principles in magic where a lot of tricks are kind of based upon similar ideas, and you'll put your own twist on those ideas. So I'd say it could be either. And and like we were talking about before, sometimes it's something where I'll come up with an idea on my own, and sometimes it's something where it'll be a conversation and a brainstorming session, and something where I'll work with other magicians and come up with things. But I'd say both.
So, and along those lines, we have like a few of the same questions. And folks that are watching, please bear with me because I'm trying to get the questions on Facebook and the questions on Zoom, and I'm trying to get everybody in there. And we're really excited to have Jen. So, just a follow up to that too is: have you ever taught a magic trick to someone who has asked? And how do you respond when maybe a child asks and you can't necessarily reveal it, or you want to keep that magic alive? How do you handle those situations?
Sure. Well, at our show at Westgate in Vegas, we, before COVID, we would do every night after the show, we'd do a meet and greet. And so oftentimes, and I loved this, kids would come up to the show, and I'd really be reminded of myself at their age, and they'd, have an interest in magic, or, they'd say, oh, can I show you a trick, which I loved, or they might want to learn something. And I think, to be able to teach them something that they can show their friends and family that might kind of help them get bit by the magic bug in the same way that I was. I'm happy to show them something simple, something, using a few rubber bands or using a playing card. As far as the actual secrets of the magic that we do in the show, which is something that we've, developed over a long time, I feel like that even to them, it wouldn't, even if they did know the secret, it's almost more fun not to know and have the experience of wonder. But also, even if they did know the secret, it's not really the type of magic where, you just walk up to your parents and show them something with rubber. So it's not really the type of thing that they would be doing, in their day-to-day life. So I think it's more helpful to them if I can show them something simple that they can do with an everyday object anyway. So, but I'm always happy, if somebody is interested in learning, to be able to encourage them in some way, because magic has been this really amazing, meaningful part of my life. And I'm excited for the future of magic and for the kids now who are growing up in magic.
Next generation of magicians. We might have some watching. So if we have any young ones in the audience, please let us know that you're here. We'll say hello. There's another really great question in Zoom. So thank you all for submitting all these questions. I'm going to try and get to as many as I can before Jen does a couple tricks for us. But there's a really great question that I think is a fun one. So the question is, how often do you see an illusion that you cannot figure out, or that takes you a few minutes to see, to process?
Another really good question.
Yeah, lots of good ones today.
So I think kind of to add to what we were talking about before, about there being these sort of foundational principles upon which lots of magic is based, and there are sort of these ideas that have existed through these magic books that have been around for years and years, and then every magician might kind of put their own twist on it. I do think that if you're a magician and you've and you've read or studied magic for a decent amount of time, you will know many things that you see as far as the workings, just because they're often based on the same kind of core group of ideas. But sometimes there's something brand new, or somebody's just put really clever subtleties into something, and then you are completely fooled. And I personally, it happens sometimes for sure. I mean, it happens all the time. If you're going to a magic convention, especially, magicians will develop magic specifically to be, as they say, magician foolers, where, rather than doing the trick in what might be sort of the most straightforward way to do it, they'll do some kind of often roundabout, or just some different approach to that trick that magicians would know, so that even magicians go, oh my gosh, I have no idea how that happened. And I think it's really fun to not know sometimes. I mean, of course it's fun to know also, but I think that experience of wonder is valuable. And if I see something and it fools me, which does happen sometimes, I think to myself, wow, that's something that I'm really impressed by, and I kind of enjoy that experience.
So someone wrote in also on Zoom, speaking of the future of magic, what do you think are the big new emerging trends? And I can't even imagine what it looks like to be at a magic convention. That's probably pretty overwhelming and amazing all at the same time. So have you seen anything that you think is going to be kind of the new up and coming thing?
I do think there's more magic involving technology. You know, you see all kinds of cool magic with iPhones and iPads, and I do think that's really cool. I think during this time when we're all sort of socially distancing and live shows are canceled and people are doing more magic virtually through Zoom, I've also seen some really innovative ideas from the magic community about adapting magic for this sort of Zoom virtual environment or creating new magic that really works well across the screen, because sometimes the magic that you do for someone in person, you know, it might not be the best choice to do through a virtual medium because it might not be visual enough, or you just might not see it on camera, or maybe you need people to participate and pick a card, so it just wouldn't be the right fit. But I think that's something that, you know, during this really difficult time, I think, you know, during tough times, it really kind of brings out it can bring out the best in people and the worst in people, but I think in a sense, some of the best things that it brings out are creativity, and I've seen that in the magic community for sure, you know, being able to adapt magic so that it works well across this kind of virtual medium.
We have another great question in Zoom, and I'm going to read this verbatim because I love the way that Joe put it. He said, what kind of challenges have you faced as a woman in the magic biz, given the preponderance of dudes?
So magic has definitely been a historically male-dominated field, and I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by wonderful people in magic, and I, you know, as a female magician, even though when I joined a young magicians group as a kid, and you know I was a part of that group for many years. I think I joined when I was 11 or 12 and aged out of the group at 18. And in all that time, I was the only girl who was sort of consistently a part of that group. I do see that changing, by the way, in a really exciting way, where more women are getting involved in magic, which I think is a wonderful thing. I do see the magic world moving in that direction, and that same group that I was a part of as a kid now has several girls who are part of the group. So I think that's sort of a sign that magic is moving that way. But I think there are certain challenges. For example, some of the books on the shelf, especially some of the more old school books, they'll say things like, well, reach into your trouser pocket, take out the card, put it in your hat, put it in your inner breast jacket coat pocket. And I'll think to myself, I'm a 10-year-old girl. I don't have a trouser pocket, a jacket coat pocket. So you have to kind of work out new ways of accomplishing some of the magical methods, which I think could definitely be seen as a challenge, but I like to really see it as an opportunity, because I think it's a chance to get creative and to come up with new ways of doing things. So I've always kind of taken that challenge and thought, okay, let me embrace this and come up with something cool and something creative.
All right, Jen, I've got a few more questions in here, but I think we have some anxious young magicians, and probably young and old alike, that are ready for you to maybe show us a few tricks. So if you're ready, we're ready.
All right, let's do it. So I mentioned that card magic is how I first got started in magic. And because of that, it has a special place in my heart to this day. And I thought I would show you something. Kind of a peek behind the scenes is that before playing cards become playing cards, as you can see, these are just blank. It's just cardstock. Before the ink is added to the cards, you just have these blank cards from the factory, just like this. And I thought, rather than printing them with a printer, I thought, what if we print these cards with magic? So watch. I'll just snap my fingers and we'll print one card. And if we pick just one card, let's make it a good one, right? Like maybe an ace. And we've got the ace of spades printed, but we're starting small. Let's do something bigger. Let's do something better. How about the backs of the cards? Because we're not just talking about the faces. The backs of the cards have to be printed too. Watch this. They're now all completely red. And we are in Las Vegas right here. Everybody, wherever you may be, you're now officially on a virtual vacation to Las Vegas. And if you're here in Vegas, if you're playing cards, what's a hand you might want to get? I'd say a royal flush.
Unfortunately, we don't have any applause, but I will give applause. And if anybody is on Zoom and wants to type in a response, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you. No, of course. I'm having so much fun doing this. This is awesome. I love that through these Yale Alumni Lives, we can all stay connected. This is
we got tons of claps going on in the Zoom chat, hopefully. And I think we have some thumbs up in Facebook as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Oh, and it looks like we have a question from a 10-year-old, I want to say Chloe. What was the first magic trick ever and who did it? Can you tell Chloe that?
Ooh, yeah. Hi, Chloe. So some of the first magic tricks I ever learned were from this book called The Royal Road to Card Magic. And there's another one that I remember learning really early on. And Chloe, I think you might like this one too. It's called the jumping rubber bands. And if you even look it up online, I think you'll find some places to learn it. But the jumping rubber bands was one of the first ones that I learned. And what I really love about that trick is that all you have to do is carry around a rubber band. You can wear it on your wrist. You know, I always have a hairband with me, so I would do it with a hairband. Chloe, if you have a hairband on you, you can do it. And it's the kind of trick where you can really pick it up quickly. So some magic takes, many days, weeks, months, even years of practice to really get it performance ready. But that's a trick where you really get that rewarding feeling of being able to share it with someone the same day that you learn it, just a few minutes after practicing it. And of course, you'll just get smoother and smoother over time. But I'd say if you're interested in learning some magic, the jumping rubber bands was one of the first tricks I learned, and it would be a great place to start. And Chloe, if you do decide to learn magic, I am rooting for you. So go, Chloe.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So are we ready for our second trick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Let's do it. So we have a deck of cards here, of course. And we can do some kind of fun shuffles with the cards too, some kind of fancy shuffles. Do you know what they call this one, by the way? This one right here? It has a special name. I like to call it showing off. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll do some fancy shuffles. We'll mix the cards around. And then, here we go. I'll back up so you all can see this. Okay, 3, 2, 1. From right out of the middle of the deck, one card flies up, lands in my hand, and that card says, Yale Alumni Live. Because I'm so happy to be here today with you all for this Yale Alumni Live. So just a fun little thing. But you know what? I'd love to do something. And Stephanie, would you be my magical assistant for this? Oh, my lovely magical volunteer?
My resume skills is just growing. I think my team leader, Mindy, is watching. So Mindy, take note of this new skill I'm acquiring. Of course, happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. You're a woman of many talents. So we have, of course, the deck of cards, and I'll just go through them. And if you see a card you like, just yell it out and we'll take that card out. We can pick any card you want.
Wait, was that a 7 diamonds? I think that was.
7 of diamonds. Is that's the one you'd like?
Let's do that. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Now, Stephanie, you had no idea that I was even going to ask you to participate in this particular trick. We didn't prearrange this in any way. No. Like, you just on the spot picked that. You could have picked any other one. Free choice.
I think you could tell by the color of my face that I am now surprised.
So we'll take Stephanie's card here, the 7 of diamonds. I'll roll up my sleeves. So, there's nothing up my sleeves here. And we're going to do something kind of bizarre, kind of weird. I'm going to take a corner of Stephanie's 7 of diamonds, and I'm going to bend it like this. And I'll put it right up by the camera so you can see we're really getting a good crease in that card. Just like so. And the reason that I'm creasing the card is so that we can tear the corner right off. Now, if we were all in the room together right now, Stephanie, I would have you tear the corner off yourself. But since we're doing this virtually, I'll tear it off, but I want to make sure everybody can listen. You can hear it tear, you can see it tear. Watch. Truly is being torn off. No illusion. I'll take this corner and I'll place it in my pocket. Right in my pocket. Watch. From my pocket, we'll take it now invisibly. And check this out. 3, 2, 1. Stephanie, what's your favorite magic word?
Presto.
Presto. I love it. A classic. Presto. Watch this. Watch. completely fused back together. No glue, no tape. If you were here, I would give this to you as a souvenir. That is truly a restored card.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Does everybody else love it? I'm looking to see the claps that we have in Zoom and the yays and the cools.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I just brought a couple of my favorite quick tricks to share with you all today. And again, if you're ever in Las Vegas, please come and say hello and check out the show at Westgate. I'd really love to have you all there. I remember when Kevin, who's in the chat here, when Kevin came to the show, we were talking about this right before we went live. He came and he sat right in the front row center, and he had a big smile on his face, and it was the best because when you're on stage, it's like you really feed off of that energy, and when you see a friendly face right up front, it's just, you get that warm, fuzzy feeling. So if any of you are ever in Vegas, that would be great to have you at the show.
I'm sure most of us are itching to get out and go see a show, so I'm sure that there will be many of people taking you up on that. So if you have a few more minutes with us, Jen, if you're willing to answer a few questions, we've got a ton of stuff going on in the chat. So I think we have a duplicate of a question, which is, have you ever had a trick fail or not go as planned, and what did you do when that happened?
So I think a big part of being a magician to me is thinking through every possible scenario you can imagine. And then after you think through like your plan A, B, C, D, E, every possible thing, something that someone might say if you have audience participation, something that they might do that might impact the trick. And you kind of think, okay, what's my backup plan? And what's my backup plan for my backup plan? I think that's a big part of it for sure. And then I also think even with as much preparation as you could possibly do, inevitably in live performance, something unexpected will happen. And so I think it's just about kind of gaining that, as Lance Burton used to call it, that flight time, that performance time, that stage time, so that you can feel comfortable handling the unexpected situations that inevitably in live theater arise. Because I think then the audience feels like they're in good hands. I think if you seem relaxed when you're up on stage performing, the audience kind of senses that and they feel relaxed too. And they think, oh, okay, like, the performers got this, we're all good. So the answer is yes, all kinds of unexpected things happen. For instance, we've had people come up on stage and say and do things that were totally unanticipated, right? We have a lot of audience participation in the show, which I love, but of course that does introduce an element that changes with the show each night. So for instance, I remember having someone come up on stage and, I think he just went into sort of a monologue and thought, okay, this is my chance to shine. I'm going to take over and just do this monologue. And, to a certain extent, going with a fun, spontaneous moment that happens can be special because, the audience will feel like, oh, this is something that's really happening. This is sort of a situational humor moment or something that really is just happening tonight for us in this show. But this was a scenario where, it wasn't really something that the audience was enjoying very much. It was just kind of, that person on stage wanted to kind of go on his own monologue. And I think the thing that comes to mind in those situations is just keeping in mind that if you're the performer, you have a microphone. So you'll have a headset or a lavalier, and the person on stage usually does not have a microphone. So if they say something really funny or interesting, you can repeat it and the whole audience hears it and it gets a great laugh. But if they say something, let's say something maybe inappropriate, if it's a family-friendly show, or if they, are saying something that doesn't quite make sense, you just don't repeat it, and nobody beyond the first couple of rows of people end up hearing what they're saying. So, as the magician, you can kind of figure out ways to control the situation to make sure that the audience is having a positive experience, which I think is really what it's all about. So to answer the question kind of briefly, all kinds of unexpected things have happened. It's just an element of live theater, but I definitely spend a lot of time in rehearsal and practice thinking through all these potential backup plans, and even sometimes like we'll have secret little props hidden on stage that in the 300 shows that we've done at Westgate have never had to use, haven't had to pull out, but I know that they're there. And if something unexpected happened in a very specific way, I would know, okay, I've got a backup of this prop, sitting right here. Let's say something breaks or malfunctions. We just kind of think through how we would handle that situation.
So that kind of relates back to one of the questions earlier about your theater major while at Yale. And then we also did have a kind of a follow-up to that was, were there any other courses or classes or other things from your experience at Yale that have inspired you or kind of made their way into your performances? Anything Yale related for our Yale crowd today?
Yes, so I loved my Yale experience. I'm so grateful for it. Oh man, so many things. I remember taking a course called Great Big Ideas, and I was looking through some of my magic drawers the other day, and I found a custom deck of cards that I had made with all the different topics that we studied in the class. And I remember doing a sort of a magic trick that was themed around those for class. So that was a class that I really enjoyed, where we had a chance to delve into, you know, each week was a different topic. So it was really sort of all about breadth and all about kind of getting that foundation of just kind of knowledge in lots of different areas, which you know, can often be applicable in ways that, you know, I might not have even initially expected, but, you know, can come up in the show in all kinds of interesting ways. I also really love languages. So I had studied Spanish throughout middle school and high school, and I did a study abroad experience in Madrid over a summer in college. And I took French and Swahili at Yale as well, and have had the chance to do magic in all of those languages. So that's been another really interesting Yale experience. The Swahili was an especially kind of different and fun experience for me, because you'd get to discover all of these fascinating words. Like, to say, you know, I'm a magician in Swahili, you say, Mimi ni mwana mazingamble. And as somebody who loves languages, I just found that so interesting. Like, to say magician, it's a 17-letter long word, mwana mazingamble. And so yeah, I really enjoyed just, you know, getting a chance to learn those languages, and loved my Yale experience overall. So many classes, so many that I loved.
That's amazing. That's so much fun. I love it. I think most of us, you know, who are based in New Haven are really missing Yale, because we all do find it to be a very magical environment. And I saw you had a couple images from Yale up on your website, which was lovely to see. So I think we're coming to the end of our time together, but we do have like one or two last questions that I wanted to get in, because I think that they're particularly relevant to, you know, kind of what we're all going through as a shared experience right now. And we talked about this a little bit behind the scenes, which was, you know, how COVID has affected your show and the fact that you haven't been able to perform. And are you planning anything special for when you can return? Have you pivoted to doing more online engagements? And do you see that being part of your act in the future? Do you think you'll have to do more online? And what does that look like for you?
Sure. So I can't wait to get back to the stage. And during this time, I've definitely been thinking a lot about and working hard on making adaptations to the show so that it really will work well for our new normal. Because of course, we're, you know, in this new normal world, some of the things that we didn't think twice about beforehand, you know, having somebody up on stage standing near you, for instance, or having them touch props, all of a sudden now don't work the same way. So I've really spent a lot of time over this time making adaptations to the show so that when it is time to go back, we're ready with a reimagined show that really works well for our new normal. And I also think, you know, it's interesting to think about magic in this virtual medium as well. And I think, you know, during the pandemic, magicians have really gotten creative and taken to, you know, all kinds of interesting virtual performances. And I think that even after this time, even when we are back to live shows, and of course there's a special magic to live shows that I love, you know, being in the room with someone, but I do think that, you know, being able to perform magic digitally and something visual that can work, whether it's across a television screen on a show or whether it's on social media, I think that's really valuable in today's world as well. That's yeah, it's sort of a combination of both, but I'm definitely excited to get back to the live show. I can't wait.
I think we're all ready to be there, and I know I can't wait to get to see you live. I think it'll be absolutely amazing. So I don't know if you want to tell everybody how they can find you online for future kind of check-ins with Jen, and hopefully maybe we'll see you again at a Yale event, but tell everybody how they can find you online.
That would be great, and I'd love to stay connected. So on social media, I'm at Jen Kramer Magic. That's Jen, one N, Kramer with a K, Kramer Magic, Jen Kramer Magic. On Instagram, on Facebook, I'm Jen Kramer, you can go to facebook.com/Jen Kramer Magic, on Twitter @Jen Kramer Magic, YouTube @Jen Kramer Magic, and my website is magicofjen.com, and that's where you can find information about the Westgate show as well.
So Jen, before we go, we have one last question from Chloe, because I think she is definitely, it sounds like an aspiring magician. She just wants to know what the hardest trick you ever learned was.
Ooh, the hardest trick. That's a great question, Chloe. Different tricks are hard in different ways. Some tricks are mentally harder because you have to think through a lot of things as you're performing. Some tricks are physically harder. Like one of the, I think the most physically challenging trick I learned was that upside down routine where we did all kinds of magic, but we were hanging upside down the whole time. So that was a totally new experience for me. But that's a really good question. I think different tricks are hard in different ways. So it's hard to say, but I'd say the upside down one was one that stands out as being challenging, but also really fun just because it was so different.
Thank you, Jen. And we had one more question about Penn and Teller, and I just want to tell everybody that Jen talked about all three of her Penn and Teller experiences just a little bit earlier, but she was I would say you were kind of in on the trick with Penn and Teller. Is that fair to say?
Yes. So it was a collaborative effort, and it was so much fun to get a chance to rehearse and work on these routines that ended up being in the show and work with Penn and Teller and with their team. And I just, I admire them so much and always have, and just had an amazing experience working with them, and I'm super grateful for that.
So that brings us to the point where you can at any time review this Yale Alumni Live on the Yale Alumni website under Virtual Yale. We've had this recorded. It will be up and available for you to go back and check out those tricks once again, or hear any of the answers to the questions that we had for Jen today. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Tons of questions, lots of great engagement from our Yale alumni near and far. So thank you once again, Jen, for being with us here today. It's been an absolute blast to have you. We are very fortunate for for the participation of our alumni near and far who have been participating in Yale Alumni Live. So thank you, Jen. We're going to hang out here in Zoom for a few minutes if anybody has any really last minute questions. Otherwise, we look forward to hopefully seeing you tomorrow, actually, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We have violinist Richmond Punch, who is going to be doing a performance for us for about 30 minutes or so, and we'll have more Yale Alumni Lives for you all summer long. So thank you all so much for being here, and thanks again to Jen for your time today. It's been great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Stephanie, Kevin, the whole team, and thank you all for coming and for participating. So nice connecting. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you again soon.